Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. I'm Jim. I'm back right away with another book haul video. I seem to be in a book browsing mood this fall. I'm trying to keep it under wraps, but I have yielded to temptation yet again. And this is going to be a combo haul. So these are two small book hauls from two different stores. So earlier in the week, I got a haircut, and then on the way back from there, I stopped at a new Goodwill store in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. Nice big Goodwill store, very clean. And they have a lot of books there on the back wall. So I browsed those and I came up with about 4 titles here. So let me step you through these. One is, one of the more interesting ones I think, is called Jung and Hesse, A Record of Two Friendships by Miguel Serrano. And this, didn't know anything about this, but actually my wife had encountered this book the first time we were at that Goodwill. We went to the grand opening day, or maybe she was there another time, I forget. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So she saw this and she said, I should have bought this, and she kind of regretted not buying it. So she said, when you go to the Goodwill store, see if it's still there. And it was, so I picked it up for her, but it's for me too, because I like Jung, and I really like Hermann Hesse a lot. I've read most of his books. One of these days I'm going to feature my paperback collection of Hermann Hesse, because I love those covers. But anyway, this blurb says, here is a unique account compiled from meetings and correspondence of one man's rare chance to probe the minds of his intellectual mentors. Late in both of their lives, C.G. Jung and Hermann Hesse befriended Miguel Serrano, the Chilean writer and diplomat. Long before their meeting in June of 1951, Serrano developed an admiration for Hesse. Reading all of his major works, he presents here an impressive picture of the 1946 Nobel laureate in his late years, still searching, still struggling to describe the ineffable. In 1959, when Serrano met him, Jung still had a vital, powerful, and creative mind. Among the letters here is a remarkable document Jung wrote shortly before his death, summing up his work and his ideas about the nature of the world. It was Serrano's admiration for both of these great men that brought him to their doors, admiration and a common interest in the many aspects of the Indian mind. He used the precious time that he had with these two great men to explore the meaning of their work. This book is a moving record of those two friendships. So it's a little bit of like a memoir and an observation of these two men that he got to know. And there's a few illustrations in there, and here's a photograph of Jung. And this looks like a good read, and it's nice and short, so I'll probably read this soon. It's only 112 pages, and it's published by Schocken Books in New York. So that was a good pickup. Next is Gabriel Garcia Marquez, Nobel Prize-winning author of Love in the Time of Cholera, Strange Pilgrims Stories. This is a Marquez book that we don't have, and I thought it would be maybe a nice entree back into his work. You know, honestly, I haven't read a whole lot of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and maybe short stories are a good way to start. And this features, what does it say on the back? 12 stories. The 12 stories in this shimmering new collection from the author of 100 Years of Solitude and Love in the Time of Cholera feature Latin American characters adrift in Europe. A bereaved father comes to Rome for an audience with the Pope, carrying a box the shape and size of a cello case. An aging streetwalker waits for death in a Barcelona apartment with a dog she has trained to weep at her grave. A panic-stricken husband takes his wife to a Parisian hospital for the treatment of a cut finger and never sees her again. Combining terror and nostalgia, surreal comedy, and the poetry of the commonplace, Strange Pilgrims is a triumph of narrative sorcery by one of our foremost magicians of the written word. And the story are here. Here's your contents. Another book I'd like to maybe read soon, because it also is short, and I haven't been reading too many short stories lately. So that might go on the TBR for later this year. And then this book, I hemmed and hawed, and I wasn't sure I would get it, but I thought, I've never seen this book before, and it's Ford Madox Ford, Parade's End, published by Vintage, and it was blurbed by W.H. Auden, which helped sell it for me. There are not many English novels which deserve to be called great. Parade's End is one of them. That's W.H. Auden, the poet. And it says, I haven't read any Ford Madox Ford. I think we have The Good Soldier, which I feel like is maybe his most famous book. I mean, that's the one I see the most. And we have a copy of it somewhere here, but haven't read it. So he's a 20th century novel, early 20th century novelist. His years are 1873 to 1939. So what is this book about? Well, I shall read. Ford Madox Ford's masterpiece, a tetralogy set in England during World War I, is widely considered one of the best novels of the 20th century. Yeah, they all say that, don't they? First published as 4 separate novels, Some Do Not, No More Parades, A Man Could Stand Up, and The Last Post, between 1924 and 1928, Parade's End explores the world of the English ruling class as it descends into the chaos of war. Christopher Tietjens is an officer from a wealthy family who finds himself torn between his unfaithful socialite wife, Sylvia, and his suffragette mistress, Valentine. A profound portrait of one man's internal struggles during a time of brutal world conflict. Parade's End bears out Graham Greene's prediction that there is no novelist of this century more likely to live than Ford Madox Ford. That's high praise too. So yeah, that kind of sold me on it. I thought, okay, you're getting 4 books in one volume. I guess they all stand as one novel. That makes it add up to over 900 pages worth of writing. Probably won't get around to this one anytime soon, but I'll put it on the shelf. And I do have an interest in World War I history. I read that Penguin book of World War I poetry and liked it a lot. So that's been on my mind. So that's another reason why I got this. And then the last of the Goodwill finds is this Philip K. Dick novel, The Divine Invasion. And, Philip K. Dick's work has been published in a lot of different editions, but these are some of my favorite paperback editions. So I really bought this for the cover. And I didn't think I had it, but it turns out I was wrong. So this book is actually included in this Library of America volume. So I have 2 Library of America volumes compiling Philip K. Dick novels. I think there might be a 3rd one like that, but I only have 2. So the first one is 4 novels of the 1960s, including The Man in the High Castle, The 3 Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and Ubik. I've read The Man in the High Castle and Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which Blade Runner, the film, was based on. I think I've read that. That's a short book, isn't it? But anyway, I should reread it. Ubik I want to read because that's one I've heard good things about. But this book, The Divine Invasion, that comes from this volume Valis, and later novels, which includes A Maze of Death, Valis, The Divine Invasion, and The Transmigration of Timothy Archer, none of which I've read. But it's funny with some authors, ever since I bought these Library of America volumes, which are very nice, I like Library of America a lot. They have the sewn-in bookmarks. They tend to be affordable, cloth-bound. They come with slip cases when you're a member, or the pretty nice dust jackets if you're not a member. But there's something about putting Philip K. Dick between the covers of Library of America that seems almost inappropriate. I mean, I'm glad he's gotten canonized that way, and I think deservedly so. He's a curious, interesting author, but by the same token, he's kind of like a pulp sci-fi slipstream kind of author, postmodern, and I feel like I would rather read him in a paperback edition like this than I would in this, more generic looking, here's a canonized author cover. I don't know if you guys have that feeling too, that like the edition that you're reading the book in can make a difference. And some of probably the first Philip K. Dick books I read, one comes to mind, Through a Scanner Darkly. It was from this series. It had similar artwork to this, and it's pretty cool design. And so, I didn't technically need this. I really honestly didn't think I had it, and then I thought I better look it up, and it turns out I do have it buried in this volume. But I'm kind of glad I got it, despite that, because, again, I associate the author more with paperback fiction than I do with hardcover fiction. So maybe somewhere down the line, like, I'll compile like a bunch of Philip K. Dick on paperback, and then I won't feel the need to even have these. I'm not sure. But anyway, I digress. What's The Divine Invasion about? It's an interesting premise. Although known during his lifetime as a writer of science fiction, and more recently as the inspiration for such films as Blade Runner and Total Recall, Philip K. Dick properly belongs in the tradition of Vonnegut, Calvino, and Robertson Davies. His novels place touchingly ordinary men and women in intimate congress with the unknowable and the awful. In The Divine Invasion, Philip K. Dick asks, what if God, or a being called Yah, were alive and in exile on a distant planet? How could a second coming succeed against the high technology and finely tuned rationalized evil of the modern police state? West Coast Review of Books says, blends Judaism, Kabbalah, Zoroastrianism, and Christianity into a fascinating fable of human existence. Dick has crafted a moving vision. And Ursula K. Le Guin blurbed it. She says, the fact that what Dick is entertaining us about is reality and madness, time and death, sin and salvation. This has escaped most critics. Nobody notices that we have our own homegrown Borges and have had him for 30 years. That's Philip K. Dick, The Divine Invasion. Again, not very long book. Because I've been reading some like religious themed books lately, this one might move towards the front of the line. And it's been a while since I've read any Philip K. Dick, so I'm probably gonna get to that. As a sidebar story, and I like sidebars. When we were in Vermont, we hit a Goodwill up there, and we were browsing, and I almost bought this very strange Philip K. Dick book, which was in hardcover, and I forget the title, but it's basically like these kind of insane, mad ravings that he wrote down, like he had visions and, you know, something happened to him in the 60s or the 70s, and it, you know, it's kind of like prophecy and like all kinds of weird stuff. And this looked like a very official hardcover, you know, like it had been edited by scholars. And honestly, I should have bought it, but as I was perusing that book, it freaked me out a little bit because it seemed a little bit, maybe more than a little bit, psychotic. And, you know, I wasn't sure I was ready to deal with that. And definitely neurodivergent, to put it mildly. But, you know, it's the kind of book that maybe you could get lost in a good way, or maybe a bad way. And I passed on it. I kind of regret that because it's not a book that you're likely to come across all that often. But, you know, I think I need to read a little more Philip K. Dick before I'm ready to go into that more sort of personal type of writing, where he was trying to grapple and understand what was happening to him in his mind. He was a kind of a troubled soul. So anyway, now on a lighter note, we just yesterday took a little trip into Delco, where I was raised, one county to the east of us, and we stopped. We had a nice little mini day trip. So we stopped at a store in a shopping center called Manoa Shopping Center, and the store is Kathy's Half Price Books, which is a fine used bookstore. Like, it's a really, really nice store, actually, in the shopping center. I've been there a few times. So it had been a while, and I thought, I want to see what they have. And then we combined that with some other trips. So we went to a nearby pretzel bakery called Bernie's Pretzels. Bernie's makes the best soft pretzels that I've had in the area, and they go way back to an early childhood Delaware County memory. There used to be this mart on I think it was on McDade Boulevard, or no, it was on Baltimore Pike, I think. And it was called the Bazaar of All Nations. And it was this vast market, like, which was like, there was like farmers market, produce and meats and cheeses and things in there, but there were lots of vendors, and there were, you know, coin collectors, and you could get stamps, and you could buy organs. There was like an organ store in there. There was anything you could think of, you know, like memorabilia, gear, like Army Navy type stuff, like clothing, books. Some of it was like kind of used or like cut out copies and things like that. And it was like sort of a lower middle class shopping mall without the nice stores. It was just, you know, kind of like rented stalls. And we used to have a lot of those marts in our area, and a lot of them are now gone. There's a few left. Bazaar of All Nations is long gone. And then there's still one that's not too far from us called Booth's Corner in Boothwyn, Pennsylvania, which is down near the Delaware border. And then there used to be a Downingtown Farmers Market, which was a similar type of store, but that's long gone. And in fact, the Goodwill that I shopped at for these books is on the site of what was once the Downingtown Farmers Market. There are still some of these marts in Lancaster County and up towards like Montgomery County and Berks County. There's a few still thriving out there, like the Green Dragon and Adamstown Market and Zern's. I think Zern's is still around. But anyway, this is all like regional color. But the Bazaar of All Nations was kind of a wild place. It was always fun to shop there, and you never knew what you were going to stumble into. And why am I bringing up this story? Bernie's Pretzels. So Bernie's Pretzels had a stand there, and we would always get Bernie's Pretzels, and they were always like so warm, just out of the oven, and they were delicious. Well, many years later, long after the bazaar was gone, I realized that they were still in business. Like, they had a shop a little bit further into Delco, maybe another mile away from the old bazaar in a small borough called Alden. And I've made a few trips there to get pretzels, but it's a little bit of a hike. And the farther you go into Delco, the denser it gets, and traffic in Delco is just like bad. It's just so many cars. And anyway, long story short, I found in Drexel Hill, right near Manoa, actually, which is sort of like Haverford Township, there's another Bernie's shop in a shopping center called Pilgrims Gardens. So after we hit Kathy's Half Price Books, we got our soft pretzels from Bernie's, and they are delicious. And then where else did we? Oh, we went to Lawrence Park, which is closer to where I grew up, in Marple Township, and we stopped at the shopping center there, and there's a really good Jewish deli called Mrs. Marty's. And my wife went in there and bought some salami and arugula, and I think some rye bread. And then after that, we made a stop in Broomall, which is where I grew up, and stopped at the Thunderbird. The Thunderbird is a cheesesteak and pizza shop right on Westchester Pike, and we got cheesesteaks. And the cheesesteaks are delicious, I have to say. And I have not been in the Thunderbird since I was a kid. And to be honest, it hasn't changed much. The original booths are still in there, the counter with the stools, and you go in there, and we ordered our takeout. And I think that place it's a family business, and I think the guy who currently runs it, I went to high school with him. We weren't friends, but I remember who he was. And we took those cheesesteaks home. We ate them, half of them yesterday, and it was really, really great. So we pigged out on cheesesteaks and pretzels, and I got a couple books. Sorry for that long detour. Anyway, the books I got were at Kathy's was a old Penguin classic, such an excellent condition. Really looks like that spine is really clean. Terence, the comedies. So 6 comedies by Terence, Roman literature. That was one I didn't have, so I'm glad to get that. And the second is another Penguins classic. This is with the cream borders. I call these third series. I call these second series. First series was the Penguins that just had they didn't have photographs on them at all. They were just plain covers they were in a color with a little medallion artwork. So this is a third series, Penguin Classics, The Death of King Arthur, translated by James Cable. And this is a book. I'm getting more into medieval stuff these days, so I might read this pretty soon too. It's not very long. The Terence I probably won't get around to right away. But that is my book haul. That's a combo haul that worked out pretty well for us. And I think I'll try to pare back my book browsing and just try to make more headway with reading now. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little sojourn into my book haul life. And if you like the channel, hope you like the button and ring the bell, do all that kind of stuff that you're supposed to do to build momentum on YouTube. Thanks for watching. Be well. Peace out.